I think it's really hard to hire really well. There aren't that many good people in the workforce, is the reality. And I know that sounds really mean and negative, but like, it's just the truth.
Hi, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Yasmin.
And we started an online community called Ecomm Girls Club because we had no friends.
Well, no, we had friends, just not friends working in e-commerce, D2C marketing and brand building like us.
And now we do. Ecomm Girls Club is the first international community exclusively for girls in e-commerce, and we have a lot to say about it.
So we started a podcast. We'll be here each week to talk about the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, building online business and the problems we face in the e-com industry.
And we'll also be sharing the stories of the amazing women within our community who are all crushing it. So let's get into it.
Hi, sorry I've been MIA.
Hi. That's okay, that's allowed, but being the wonderful co-founder and friend that I am, I was like, is Yasmin alive? Because I normally hear from you bleating about something to me.
Well,
like
this is a real, we've had a turnaround because so Lucy, bless you by the way, thank you for checking in, but Lucy messaged me earlier, like, just as a friend, because normally we talk every single day. Are you okay? She was like, I haven't seen you active on socials and I haven't heard anything from you. And I was like, actually, I'm just really content. I'm just really happy. Like,
love that for you.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I don't feel the need to be on social media, like on Instagram, kind of. It's a bit of a double-edged sword though, because I'm so content when I'm not on social media and like.
But it's a massive part of our job.
Complaining about my life. Yeah, but then also it is kind of feels like it's doing a good thing when I am on there, kind of talking about work-related stuff, I guess.
I think it's a balance.
Yeah.
You have to find what's right for you, right? Yeah. Like, I find the same. Like, when I'm having the best time ever, it's normally I forget about my phone. It's like when I was at a wedding this past weekend with wonderful friends in Gracia, and I didn't have internet, which was like a dream.
So
like
nice.
When I wasn't in my accommodation where I was working. PSA to any of my clients listening.
By the way, what does PSA stand for? I see it all the time.
Public service announcement.
Oh, I see it on TikTok all the time, which, by the way, we're going to talk about the highs and lows of our last week as Ecomm.
I know what yours is already because I've heard about it.
TikTok is like it features.
And I also want to, once we've done our highs and lows, I would actually really like to talk about something that I feel you know more about than me actually, which is hiring, because I think
I know bits.
It's so interesting, and I think a lot of our audience are from what we know anyway, are possibly at that stage where they're running businesses by themselves and it's getting to the point where they need extra help, like me. And it is just, there's so many options and it's so confusing. And I've spoken to Yaz privately about this so many times. It is like quite a scary step, I would say, of building a business.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, Yasmin, what have the highs and lows of your week been?
Sorry, I'm just closing the curtains.
Start with the highs.
Oh, that's so much better. You can actually see the definition of my face now. I'm not just like a moon.
You were like looking paler than me, which is wild.
Yeah, we had to course correct quite swiftly there. So I have had like a journey on TikTok this week. Basically with Cloth Project, like we really only scale through Meta. We've got like 25% organic sales, but everything else comes from Meta. So I really want to push TikTok as like a potential additional revenue stream for the business, but also like there are just so many brands doing it. It feels like I'm just getting FOMO a little bit. Anyway, I did my first TikTok live like last week, I think, and it was really rogue. I was just at home working and I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to jump on TikTok live. Like, who does that? I did. And I got 300 viewers, which for like the first for TikTok
who's
live,
never done it.
Yeah, I was like, do you know what? This has potential. Like, this could actually work if I learned to like finesse how to be on TikTok and like actually how to kind of bundle products, give offers and stuff. Like, this could work. So then I did it again the next day and I got like 250 viewers or whatever, but it was still strong. And then I did it again the third day in a row and got literally zero, like not even one. And I was just like, oh, maybe it's just like a weird time of day. So then I like basically consistently tried to go on TikTok lives most days. And I as with anything, like consistency is key. And it's really, I do believe like even with TikTok, you do need to be going on lives. Like some brands are live for like 6 hours a day. P. Louise is live 24/7. Like it is a thing. And yeah, I just kept consistently getting 0 viewers. So I felt like I had like a really high for the first 2 like times doing it, and then literally a complete crash afterwards.
Do you think you got shadow banned?
I think I got shadow banned, but then
so actually, do you know what? Should we explain? Do you want to give a quick download on like what shadow banning means? Because I feel like it's anyone running a brand needs to know about it.
Yeah,
it's happened to countless numbers of my clients on hopefully only one channel. There's been one occasion where it happened across other channels. Yeah.
Okay,
it's fairly common. I'm not an expert, but do you want to just?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like when they kind of block all your content from being shown to other people, so other users of
without
the platform.
Warning. It's not like being reported or anything.
Yeah, you don't get any like violation, because violations on TikTok are a thing. You get violated for like doing anything wrong. So that's like another reason why I'm just losing interest in TikTok. But shadow banning is when they just stop your content from being shown to people. And like I just found it really disheartening and frustrating, because I was like, demoralizing, because I think the thing with shadow banning is you're not given, there's no one from TikTok that kind of, you don't get any communications, you don't get any warnings, and you don't get any explanation as to why. Because I think so if a brand knew why they were being shadow banned, or any creator, you just work to rectify that problem. But with no explanation, like you can't do anything about it. And I was Googling like how long do shadow bans last, and apparently it can last up to 2 weeks. So
oh wow, yeah. I mean, it's super interesting, that whole world. It's the same as I've had clients who recently have had like Facebook pages suspended.
Hell, that's actual
which is
hell.
Also a nightmare. And I think something that anyone going into online business, whether it's D2C online products or anything service-based, anything that relies on the internet, which is pretty much every business in some sort or form, top tip, try and find people who have good connections at TikTok and Meta and Google, because when something goes wrong with those platforms, it is notoriously difficult to get it fixed. Because if you think about the volume of people having problems, and I don't care what anyone says, I just don't think those companies have the back end capacity to help everyone in the way that they need. And it's really hard, because you understand if they've got thousands of complaints or problems coming in, but to you, right, your business is your baby, it's your whole world. So if it breaks, like it's
literally it's so the word you use is really good, just like demoralizing basically, because you kind of feel like it's 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. But I did get some kind of comfort when I put it in the group chat. So there's like 140 say
the Ecomm Girls Club,
in our people in our Ecomm Girls Club WhatsApp, and literally like 7 or 8 people came back saying we've had the same thing. And then actually, I don't know if you saw, Luce, but Alex Earl, who's like one of the biggest TikTokers and just general influencers in America, also commented on her own TikTok post saying, why have I been shadow banned? So it's like happening to creators like all across the range, from like massive creators to like small brands. But I'm still kind of trying to think of like ways around it. And a suggestion that came from the group was to do basically like promote TikTok lives. So put spend behind it.
I was going to say that's way more useful than my suggestion I gave Yasmin, which was like, go on to X, formerly known as Twitter, and find a dark web lord to fix it for you. Because that exists. That's a thing.
That
people.
exists.
It's not reliable. I wouldn't recommend it. And I'm sure these dark lords are literally like 15-year-old genius guys sitting in their mum's like house. But still, that was a very unhelpful suggestion.
No, I feel like
probably
X is, or Twitter or whatever, is still probably like a really useful tool if you use it. Because
you think it's just happening to you as well, right? You can go, if something happens to Meta, I know people often put things on Instagram, but normally if you think something's broken, if you go onto X, you can see if it's just you or if it's like everyone.
It's true.
Really helpful.
I feel like if I didn't have the Ecomm Girls Club group chat, the WhatsApp, I would have had to go onto something like X or just a different kind of platform to get some advice. But luckily I got loads of help like pretty quickly from it. But I'm still figuring it out. Like I was posting reels last. Is it a reel on TikTok? Is it still called a reel? Or is that just Instagram?
God, that question's blown my mind.
I keep talking about like posting stuff on TikTok and I'm like, I don't know what terminology to use.
Yeah.
Anyway, I posted loads of content. I'm posting like twice a day, 3 times a day. Last week I was getting like 700, 800 views, which I know is not massive, but like for a brand new account, it wasn't bad. And then this week it's gone all the way down to like 200, 300 views. So
we should do a TikTok episode.
I feel like we should. Yeah, we really should.
We should get Celeste on.
Yeah, and we should also get Yasmin from Lux Emporium on to talk about TikTok, because that's how they've really scaled.
Because I think even though it's obviously such a big platform, I would say, and this is where we feel old, especially for our generation, us in our 20s that aren't like 21, like Meta is much more. We know way more about Instagram.
Way more about Instagram.
Overall, that's a massive generalization. And I know there's plenty of agencies that are specialists on TikTok. And I run content through my agency for TikTok. And I know what I'm talking about in terms of creating it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the back end of the platform and what's happening, it is just so new comparatively. But very interesting. But I'm sorry that was the low of your week, but also great that it was a high and you found a new channel, right?
And also a new channel, and without sounding too cliche, a new challenge. It's like I kind of needed like a new toy. Yeah, I need something to really like get not stressed about, but something that's like I don't really understand, so that I can like try and pull it apart and get little wins in my day. Because I feel like it's TikTok is the thing that I've never done before, so it's good to have it as like a challenge, I suppose, for us as a brand as well.
That's literally, yours is more useful than mine. My equivalent is, as you know, I'm obsessed with Chinese social media.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? You love it.
But
you speak Chinese.
For the same, but partially because it's learning for me.
It's so sick, but also, though, that you do. Sorry.
It's like my party trick. But also because the platforms there, I use one in particular, which is the Instagram equivalent in English, it's called a Little Red Book. It is so much more powerful than Instagram. And it is, I wrote in our Ecomm Girls Club newsletter about it, about one of the Chinese platforms last issue, because I think we should be paying way more attention to it. I was having a discussion with one of my clients the other day about AI and using AI to create user-generated content and different content types. And I was like, well, I'm going to go and research what they're doing in China, because a lot of the time they're way ahead.
Wow.
And it's really not user-friendly if you don't speak Mandarin or whatever language the content is in. But it's so interesting to see as well the differences in how they approach platforms. And I think customer journey on platforms, all those things. So it's the same for me. Like I love pulling that apart and looking at different creators and how things work from an ecom perspective on those platforms as well. But it just isn't super accessible if you don't speak the language.
So is it like it's just like Instagram but Chinese version? So it's like Instagram.
Yeah, but it looks quite different. And I would say generally speaking, the platforms in China are a lot more kind of user to user focused rather than like B2C.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the way they kind of build them and things like that. And yeah, it's hard to even explain it. It's so different. But I do think, especially big agencies, you should be looking, guys, to see what they do, because there's so many learnings we can take.
Absolutely.
And apply them to channels we use over on this side of the world.
Yeah. Do you see many brands on there? Like, do they do lots of paid? Is that like a Meta? Like what's it called? Ads.
Everything they have pretty much everything.
That's insane.
That we have.
I'd love to understand like the metrics and like CACs, average CACs for like.
I'll do you a personal spotlight session, Yasmin.
Do you know
with me in a PowerPoint?
Yeah. Do you?
No.
I mean, that would. Just
I don't know
so
about like CAC and stats, but I'm very keen to learn.
Well, yeah, because especially with like, I know if you're a beauty brand or anything formulaic, it's very, very difficult to sell in China. But for like a jewelry brand or a fashion brand, I don't think there is many restrictions.
You see some Western brands like popping up on there.
Really?
The other way it's incredibly interesting to look at, the other reason it's incredibly interesting to look at it or perspective, influencer marketing. Wild. Like it's incredible. I always find it incredible as well how there are KOLs is what they would call their big influencers, key opinion leaders. the amount of power and the amount of followers, like, quite frankly, shits all over like influencers our side of the world. But it's amazing that my Chinese friends or Chinese teacher will talk to them and I would have no idea who they are, even though they've got like hundreds of millions of followers and are so famous, and it's just so siloed. It's really interesting, but the power that they have is incredible.
That's so interesting. I guess like I've never heard of it because many brands of like the same size of mine, or even like a lot bigger, they just focus on the regions that they are native
and one market a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of you to start off with anyway.
I mean, I honestly think you'd have to employ a whole team to understand the Chinese market, because it's like culturally it's so very different, and so I'm even thinking like
completely different.
like even trying to create ads that appeal to a Chinese 29-year-old versus an English 29-year-old like you and me, everything would have to be completely different. And I think unless you understand the cultural nuances, that would be an impossible task. So like then operationally and financially, like implementing something like that for any Western brand is huge, right? I guess. So maybe that's why we don't see it or hear about it as often.
Even organically, the type of content or the style of content I would post on there as opposed to Instagram is very different in style as well.
In what way?
Aesthetically, like stickers, overlays, things like that, the editing, the music. Yeah, I mean, look, I can.
So interesting.
I can do a little side by side and link it somewhere so people can see the kind of the difference in what I would post. And I am not an expert. I have a bigger following, both tiny, by the way, tiny. But
are you a Chinese influencer?
Very small. Am I? No. But I have a bigger following on the Chinese one than I do on Instagram, and I've had it for 5 months.
That's wild. What is your following on the Chinese Instagram?
For 10 years. I want to say like 3,500, something like that. Like in like 6 months, of thousand, so not many.
That's still really good. Unreal.
Comparatively to like Instagram, I've had probably like I don't even know 10 years. You know, like it's so it's very interesting. But anyway, that is a massive segue. So I'll stop.
Have we even talked about your highs and lows from the week?
No.
Okay, well let's do that because we've segued onto TikTok for the last 20 minutes.
Do you think I'd be prepared? I mean, I know what my high is, and I guess it's slightly different to yours in that it's more of a lifestyle thing, and that, you know, we've spoken so many times on the podcast about like we love what we do, but it's really tough. Like I will work anywhere, like I work on the floor in airports, I work on buses, I work everywhere, and stupid hours, but it is 100% worth it when you get to experience things with your friends, or you don't have to say no to things because of your employer. Like I spent the whole weekend, as I mentioned, in Croatia celebrating 2 of my very good friends' wedding, and it was incredible. And to be able to just like work around that and work through travel days, because I can work on planes, you know, I just download my work before, and being able to be so flexible with my life, it was a highlight, because I think I was able to kind of reflect on the trip. And I've been away from home, Hong Kong, 7 weeks. I go back tomorrow. Wow. And just being able to do that was like a dream for me, like less than 2 years ago. So I think it makes the hard work worth it, you know, when you sit back and you're like, I can do X, Y, and Z. I love
that. That's like a really grateful high.
Yeah, like it is. I think it's you forget sometimes in the day-to-day when things are stressful, or like you're dealing with Slack messages at 2 a.m. While you do things. But then when you step back and you realize like the incredible people I've met, all these things that only happen because I live kind of, I guess, a digital nomad-esque lifestyle. That was my high for the week, really. And just being appreciative of the friends and stuff I have.
Unreal.
Great.
That's such a nice one. And what about the low?
I'm trying to think of the low, to be honest.
I mean, it's great if you don't have one. Don't force it. Let's stay on this positivity train.
Do you know what? It's a really boring one, but I've had a lot of technical difficulties this week, which is the downside. Not so much with platforms like Yaz, but just like
Platforms
small things
like
platforms like TikTok for Yas. You knew what you got there in the end.
Is this something new that I've not heard of? Or is she taking the piss? I didn't know. I was like, it could have gone.
I do take the piss out of you quite a lot, so like it's fair enough that you'd assume that. Oh, Yazzie.
No, yeah, I think that's really nice. But I also feel like you've felt in a really good position recently since being able. This is kind of just developing the thought that you were just talking about freedom and flexibility to travel, and you were saying how good you felt when you were in Lisbon, and just
I love it there.
Yeah.
I think it's just working. Yeah, I also feel very content like you, which is great. But at the same time, it's a really minor low point really, but my iPhone is like semi-busted and my data roaming does not work, which is actually very... Yeah, it's problematic because you can't always have a laptop out and you're not always with Wi-Fi. And it's just inconvenient because I really pride myself on being able to respond to clients like very quickly, or like my team, I don't want to bottleneck them, and if they've got a question, I want to be able to answer it from my phone very, very quickly. And then I feel bad because I don't like slowing them down, it's annoying for everyone. So that has just been my annoying issue of the week, but in the grand scheme of things it's a very, very small one, which I'm grateful for. Stay tuned for next week because I'm sure there'll be a meltdown in there brewing.
Do you know what just feels weird is how we're both just really good.
Neither of us are crying. Wow.
This just never happens in the whole year and a bit that we've been doing this. Or just talking.
Someone's always having a meltdown, one of us. But I mean, that's the beauty of being friends with someone you run a business with, is that we both get it. And it's the whole reason we have this business basically is because we wanted to find people we could cry with.
Literally. That should be our new strapline. Finding you people to cry with.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's quite a nice segue into finding your people, because finding your people to build your business with is also a journey and a half.
Yeah.
I remember Yaz saying to me ages ago, more people, more problems. And it's a good one.
So should we talk about that? This is to do with the hiring piece, right? So
it's more like an overview, because I think one, for our audience, it's really helpful to talk through our experiences with hiring, because we've both done it very differently. I know in your agency you had full-time staff. I have more of a freelancer model at the moment, and I've debated going back and forth on full-time hiring for literally a year now. And I just think it is a scary part of running a business as well, because you have to hand things over to grow. But finding the right people is really hard, especially if you haven't done it before. Because it's a costly mistake as well, right?
It's a costly mistake, but I think it's actually, not to scare anyone, I think it's really hard to hire really well. There aren't that many good people in the workforce, is the reality. And I know that sounds really mean and negative, but it's just the truth. And so I think where possibly I went wrong in the past, and probably a fairly common mistake, is rush hiring, or not spending enough time on that hiring process. I think the worst position you can be in, it's a fine line, right? You don't want to hire too early when you don't need to hire, but you also don't want to be so stressed and pushed that you're rush hiring because you need resource, you need help. So I think it's a really fine balance. There's a sweet spot, and that's hard to identify often. But I do think that it's very much a skill to hire. And, they even say that actually, when you become CEO of larger corporations, mostly your job often becomes mainly recruitment. And you see it quite a lot. So I'd say don't underestimate how hard it is, but also don't put pressure on yourself to find the right person straight away, because it probably will take time.
Yeah, and it is it's a really hard balance that I've even been through it, of putting yourself under so much pressure because you're doing all the work, versus having someone who's not a right fit can actually make it 10 times worse. Because if you've got to spend time correcting work, it's really, it costs you time then, and also money, because you've obviously got to pay someone. I think it was Seamus, who is a friend of Ecomm Girls Club at eClarity, an amazing Ecomm finance agency, and he said hire for culture and train for skills. And I think that's there's a balance to it. Obviously there's some skills you need, but I think thinking about culture fit is really important.
I think it depends on the nature of your business as well. Like obviously
like if they're doing accounting, you need someone qualified. Like, you know, like legal can't be like your mate, you know.
But do you wear cloth project though?
Or can it? Yeah.
But I agree. I feel like it's a really it's a skill to hire. I personally haven't actually hired anyone in like 3 years, so I've not been on the front line doing that myself, but like I'm very close to people.
Who did you hire first? When you ran your agency, who was your first hire? I'm intrigued.
Oh yeah, see, this is the thing. Like, I think we hired in the wrong order. So we started hiring really junior staff because I was just at absolute capacity, and I was like, I need help. Like, I was launching like 8 different brands.
It's insane.
It was insane. It was silly, mental, to be honest, in hindsight, but like I was like, I can do this.
When you're young,
you don't want to just take on the world. So our first hire were just juniors, assistants, just help. I was like, and this is why I say you don't want to be in that position where you're absolutely like capped out and then you're hiring because you just need like boots on the ground. I don't actually think that's the best way to hire. If I were to do it again, I'd always hire up and hire somebody who's far more experienced and far more skilled than I am. Yeah. I think what I would probably do is, knowing what I know now and like launching Ecomm brands, I would have hired a head of growth and probably pared back the number of brands that I launched. Yeah, just dialed in on, really, probably just one brand. And I've seen examples of that happening in other areas and it working really well. So that's probably what I would do now if I were to like start again. But then the thing is, like, I know, you know what's really good is hiring interns. So you're not actually hiring, you're not putting anybody on your payroll. I think if you are in a position where you do just need some help, and you've not got loads of resources, I'd go down the intern route and then try and allocate your capital to a more kind of specialist role if you're looking to scale and grow. That is probably what I would do. What do you think?
I mean, I think that's good. I would say one option that people should really look into is there are a lot of sites like Upwork and Fiverr with freelancers. If you're someone like, so everything was going really great when I started the Leaf Group and I had loads of new clients and it was so exciting, but I was spending so much time like invoicing and doing admin and like sorting files and like scheduling and things like that, which was not the best use of my time and was ultimately would do my clients a disservice, you know, because I want to focus on where I can add value. So I hired actually, my first hire is still with me.
No way.
Like,
that's nice.
Yeah, she's an integral part, Josie, of the Leaf Group. And I hired...
what is it? The elusive Josie. I've never met Josie, but she's done some like asset work for us as well through Econ Girls Club. So
she's great. And like, I hired her off a site called Upwork, and now she works for me like officially as well, still on a freelance basis. But she is a diamond and does so much for me and my clients in terms of all the scheduling, all my admin, everything like that. But I literally interviewed about 30 people to find her. I just blocked out 2 days of my diary, put up a job ad and just sat there. And it was, you know, it's an annoying thing to have to do because you're wanting to do your work, obviously. But I would tell anyone to do the same, because you just know if you speak to that many people, you get a feeling for like people that are the right fit for your business. Because I need people who are flexible. Oh, ring light's gone.
I just saw that happen.
I no longer look glowing.
You do.
Guys.
You're still
this is the real me.
You look the same. You look great.
But yeah, that went really. I got really lucky in that sense because it went really well, and she is a huge part of our team and. You know, my clients know her as well, and is great. And then I did probably the rogue one, which people will have opinions on, is I hired a friend part-time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Celeste.
Which is the wonderful Celeste, who again, everyone knows. And she works with me a couple of days a week.
And is that all good? Like no road bumps? No. I mean, that's so great.
But I think
make that work.
Similarly though, I will say, similarly to you and me, Yasmin, we reconnected by chance in France. We used to live near each other in Australia. Reconnected last summer in France, and she was starting her freelancing journey, and I needed help with the things that, because she's a specialist on like creative and copywriting, she's brilliant, and I needed help at that time. So yes, we were friends, but we hadn't really been in touch for a few years. So I could talk to her, like I knew her character and I knew she was really dependable and brilliant at what she did. But similarly, like with us, like we became really close after we started working together, and I think that makes it way easier with boundaries, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's a difference between working with a friend who you're like already very close with. I think that's completely to maybe an acquaintance that then becomes a friend.
Yeah.
I think the latter is probably is safe.
And I think with all hiring, you just have to be, the communication is the key thing, right? You have to be able to have frank conversations with people. It's a hard skill and you have to learn it.
Yeah, it is. I also like, it's quite interesting because I'm just thinking about like cloth project now and what would be our first hire. And honestly, because I feel like I can do so much of the work myself, I'm just like, oh, I'll just do it. Like it's going to be really hard to get to the point, which hopefully we do get to, where it's like, okay, cool, now let's hire someone because we need to. But part of me just feels like there's so much that you can do with such a tiny team, like just me and Sasha, that I honestly just, I don't know what our first hire would be. Like, I suppose, back to what I said earlier, it might be like a really specialized head of growth that can just like, if we really wanted to like take it to the next level, if we were already seeing like really good traction. But
I also think
I don't know otherwise.
There's a difference probably again with brands and agencies, because agencies are so people focused and like they can only scale with people, so with a brand it's slightly different. And I would also say probably the piece of the puzzle we've missed out is like brands hiring agencies, because that's also, if you need specialist help in an area, it is often the first kind of point is to get an agency and then to in-house it, right, is the typical route.
Yeah, I don't know if I spoke about this on our last episode about how
would you get a paid media agency?
I was just thinking, I was listening maybe I did say this, I'm getting like flashbacks of this conversation. I was talking about a podcast called The Operators. It's really good if you're like an Ecomm founder to listen to it, but like it is really quite advanced but still really interesting. And they had, I won't spend too much time on this because I definitely did talk about it last time, but a girl on their agency, ex-agency, I think. And she was just saying like one of the first hires that she would make is she'd put her paid media like jobs into just source an agency to do it, because they're going to be always on. I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with like agencies. Just because
I think most people
you never really know what you're going to get, like especially with paid.
So and it's hard to know. I think with things like paid media as well, it's hard to know the right approach because so many people do it so differently, and like you can get so confused if you listen to so many different people. I get confused because my clients have different paid media structures, and I get confused by different ways that people are doing it and want their content even to go out. It is hard. And I think with agencies as well, is like they're not sat with you, so you can't see. But I guess if you've got remote teams anyway, but you have probably less control, right, over how they spend their time.
But I think like a real nugget that we've learnt over the last like multiple episodes and kind of interviewing Ecomm founders and just having chats is that you really do have to have had some time in the account yourself and understand the basic mechanics of paid, because then when you are having those conversations with agencies, like whether what they're saying is accurate, or if whether you can contest it, or like you can really pull it apart and put it back together, so you come away from the conversations feeling confident that like the work that's being done, you actually understand what's going on. Because I think that's like a big risk. Before I knew anything about paid, we would use, and like the brands that I was working on previously, we would use agencies, and like I just would not know. I just wouldn't know what they were doing, and they were just spending this money, and it would be like, well, what's happening? So
I think so. And I think another thing I would say about hiring is, how everyone always says outsource what you're bad at and do what you're good at, which is very valid. And I think with a brand and stuff, and an agency as well, like you should do what your skill set says. But I would say when you're first looking to get people involved, sometimes you can't do that. You need to give them what you can give them at that point to take it off your plate. Sometimes you have to give up stuff you like doing, like I do,
That's true.
because that's just the reality, because you can't give everything away, and like you've got to look at your budgets and your revenue, and and you might want to hire someone full time, but that's a big investment, and also you lose agility in your business if you do that in some respects, because if you need to cut costs, like you've got a responsibility to pay people if they're on full-time contracts and things like that, which I can imagine. I've never done that, but it's quite stressful as well.
It's quite interesting
having people on payroll,
that kind of conversation, because like normally the stuff that you enjoy doing is the stuff that you're just good at versus the stuff that you there's like a very common correlation there. So really hard to give up doing the stuff that you enjoy doing. Can you give an example of that for you? Like what kind of stuff that you enjoy doing that you've had to give up or like hand over to someone else, for example?
So like copywriting, like I love copywriting. I could write all day, and for anyone who might not know, my agency is kind of split in two parts, and we have a UGC production side, and then on the other side we do some consulting for startups and work fractionally on content and copy and all these things, a bit of personal brand work for founders. It's super fun, and I would love to like sit and write all day, because I write a lot of content for people, but I can't because it takes time to do it properly, and I've got the skills in my team to do it as well as me, if not better. So I need to, like give that away and focus on doing finance and other fun tasks.
No, well, I think that's the clincher, isn't it? Like if you can afford to hire people that are better than you at the thing, even if you love doing the thing.
That you trust as well with
then
it.
That's the decision that you do have to make. And it's just a bit of good with bad. But it's quite interesting because like even having conversations with really established founders, they always still have to do work that they don't want to do, or like, do you know what I mean? Although I did see something the other day and it was like stress is, wait, let me find it. I feel like this might actually be really unrelated. Stress primarily, this is so unrelated.
We're always so prepared.
I'm going to read it out anyway. Love it. Stress primarily comes from not taking action over something that you can have some control over. So totally unrelated to what we were just talking about, on that. But
I do agree though.
Quite insightful.
Action kills anxiety.
Yes,
I always say that.
It so does. By the way,
just do things.
We still need to do our podcast episode where we're literally just reciting insightful quotes.
Oh yes, we do. I might dress up for that one. Really add to the aura. But basically, hiring is hard, and people are hard. But it isn't. I think the best thing you can also do, and I've done this, is ask people who've done it before, because you'll get a good nugget of insight from each person on like things they did or things they wish they'd done, which is also very valuable. Whether it was hiring too soon, not hiring soon enough, all these things. Because the other thing is like, if you give yourself too much work and try and scale by yourself and do everything by yourself, you'll burn out and then you'll lose clients. Like it's the really, I'm
honestly like really put off hiring full-time people now. Like I would always love to go down the freelance route for as long as possible, and then just really hire if and when like there's a real need for someone super specialist and really bloody brilliant at that job. Like otherwise, if you're hiring juniors, if you need like I say, boots on the ground, I'd honestly just stick to freelancers or interns, because you don't need the headache. It's like more people, more problem.
I've gone back and forth on it for a long time, but I'm actually I've settled in the same position. Like I'm very fortunate. I have a wonderful little squad at the Leaf Group, and I think the other thing to talk about is, like your values are also like your company values, and I like to have fun and I like to make people smile. If you haven't guessed, my husband can attest to this. I'm quite silly, and I just try and make things fun at work. Like we all have ridiculous job titles because it's just fun, like and things like that. And I really enjoy that part of hiring and getting to know people. Like Josie, who works for me, brings her baby to meetings sometimes, and he is so cute. And we're going to get him a Leaf the Group t-shirt, you know, like, and it's just like that, those kind of things, and getting to know people and have them be part of what you're building is the best bit of hiring, 100%.
Yeah, I mean,
and when people discover things they're good at, like new things as well, is great.
Yeah.
Like I love seeing people like develop skills.
Yeah. I really do miss having a team. Like it was probably my favorite thing. Like I loved having a team, but I also know that it's a lot of roles are unnecessary at this stage, and you know, all in good time kind of thing. But I still sort of 100%. Flip between the two scenarios of like office, in-house team, or fully remote. Like I romanticize, because obviously I used to have an office in Chiswick, and I literally had it exactly how I wanted, like these big oak desks and like all the cool artwork and the cozy snug corner and the fridge filled with drinks. Like it was just exactly what I'd always envisaged.
I can so imagine you having that as well.
Yeah.
Just
and then like
I bet it looked beautiful.
The neon like
of course you did.
Sign. Literally had it all.
So on brand for you.
On brand. It was like my dream. And then we had like this massive terrace, and it was just really cool. And like obviously the team came in every single day, but there were also many moments when I was just like, I really just don't want to go into the office today. Like I felt so much pressure from having this big team, and like I had to show up for them every single day physically as well as like mentally. I don't know. So pros and cons to that, but also just like realistically, I can't see how it's possible to have an office and have people coming in, even if it's on a hybrid model, and maintain a free lifestyle where I want to travel and kind of just take off and work from wherever, which is what I do at the moment. I don't know how those two things would ever work together.
I've kind of viewed it as like, if anyone hasn't noticed, I travel quite a lot at the moment.
You travel
Part
loads.
of the reason I do that is because at the moment I have the flexibility to do that, and I'm well aware that if my business is growing, I do need people in one place to be successful, you know, like to really grow and scale. That might come to an end, and I'm okay with that. So I'm trying to like make the most of it now, because I think it is hard to do both, and I think it's really unfair when people mandate their teams come in and then they go jet setting off around the world working.
I just don't think you can. I just think it sets such a poor example, and like ultimately you're not going to motivate your team by doing that. So like, why you may as well quit while you're ahead and just work remote, because then you all maintain your freedom.
The other thing I would say is, in terms of your point about like finding good talent, I've seen across clients I work with, a lot of the best talent works freelance because they know they can 100%. Make a better living and they make more money. So, you know, I've always kind of taken the view that I'd rather have someone really good who can get a lot done in a short amount of time and know that they are working for other people, than have someone average who isn't doing the output that I need. And I think that's just, you know, you can't kind of be like, oh well, they're freelancing, that's so annoying. Well, they're just being smart, to be honest, about their own income.
Exactly.
So,
and
like,
I think you get to a point as well where like,
so
you know that's an like for me, for example, I don't want to set up an agency again, because I can make more money personally in the long term doing what I'm doing in terms of focusing on like my brand. But in the short term, the consultancy work's also really good and enjoyable and fun. Yeah, exactly. Like I really do love it. I really do love it.
If I needed a product made, I'd hire Yasmin.
Thanks, yeah, I get a lot back from it, and I think that's really important. Whereas when you're working for kind of just one company or one business, you don't get that diversity and variation. There's a lot of transferable knowledge as well that you can kind of then utilize across projects, which is always great. So
100%.
So yeah, sorry, we've kind of like digressed a little bit there onto kind of consultancy versus
this is what happens
agency and whatever, but
chatting away.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's pretty much it for today. We're really excited because we've got guests coming back soon.
Yay, we do. We've got my co-founder, Sasha, on Cloth Project.
And Izzy.
And also Izzy, who has her own brand called La Granny. She says it in such a great
Beautiful
accent.
brand.
It's a Peruvian. She's Peruvian. So
beautiful.
But yeah, we've got that coming up next, so that'll be ace.
Yes. But other than that, I hope everyone has a good week.
Have a good week, guys.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And to get involved with Ecomm Girls Club, search for @Ecomm Girls Club on Instagram. And if you feel like taking your Instagram stalking one step further, we are both also on Instagram @YasminChic and @LucyCG.